The last time the warriors of Islam met the nomads of the steppe, the outcome was brutal. On the banks of the Kalka River in 1223, the Mongols crushed a coalition of Rus princes and their Cuman allies. A defeat so complete it became legend. But that was only the beginning. 2 decades later, the tide turned. The warriors of the Crescent rode west once more, not as merchants or envoys, but as avengers. Across the Caucasus, banners of Islam rose again, led by princes and emirs who still remembered the shame of Kalka. This time, they would not flee. They would stand and fight. Welcome to Echoes of Past, and this is the story of the forgotten battle where Islam returned to challenge the steppe itself. We're pushing toward our first 10,000 subscribers, and though the road's been rough and resources few, we'll keep bringing you the finest stories of history ever told. So, you can consider liking, subscribing, and for now, let's come back to the banks of the Talas River, 751 A.D. In the mid-8th century, the heart of Asia became the meeting ground of two worlds, the Islamic Caliphate of the Abbasids and the Tang Empire of China. Both powers, confident and expanding, reached their limits not through geography, but through each other. Between them stretched the endless grasslands and deserts of Central Asia, a land of shifting alliances, caravan cities, and the pulse of the Silk Road. By 751, the Tang dynasty stood at the height of its might. From Chang'an to the western oases of Kashgar and Fergana, its banners flew over protectorates and tributary states maintained by the Yangtze Protectorate. For the Tang court, Central Asia was more than territory. It was the artery of trade, prestige, and influence, a way to project civilization into the wilderness. To the west, the Abbasid Caliphate had recently supplanted the Umayyads. Under a new capital in Baghdad, its commanders sought to consolidate control over the eastern frontier. For the Abbasids, the regions of Transoxiana and Sogdia were not merely distant lands, but vital crossroads of trade, learning, and faith. The caliph's governors in Merv and Samarkand began to notice the steady encroachment of Chinese authority pressing westward. Central Asia was never a vacuum. It was a world of Turkic tribes, Sogdian merchants, and Karluk horsemen, who owed allegiance to no emperor for long. These groups traded silk and slaves, but also loyalty to whoever paid best or offered protection. It was in this unstable mosaic that the ambitions of both empires collided. The spark came from the Fergana Valley, a contested oasis between Tang and Abbasid interests. A local dispute over succession spiraled into a call for foreign aid. The Tang general Gao Xianji, a Korean-born commander famed for discipline and daring, marched west with orders to secure the region. In response, the Abbasids dispatched Ziyad ibn Salih, a veteran of campaigns in Khorasan, to counter the Chinese advance. When the two armies finally met on the Talas River plain near the border of modern-day Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, neither side expected the other to back down. Gao Xianji believed that the Tang order could defeat any barbarian army. Ziyad ibn Salih believed that faith, mobility, and the sword of the faithful, Saif al-Mu'min, would outlast the rigidity of bureaucracy. And in that narrow, dusty, windy valley, history would prove both men half right and both completely wrong. The battlefield lay across a dry, rocky plain near the river, a harsh landscape of sand and sparse grass where visibility was good, but the terrain punished heavy movement. Gao Xianzhi deployed his army in a traditional Tang formation, infantry in the center, heavily armored and shielded, with Karluk cavalry auxiliaries on the flanks and archers forming the first line. His plan was clear: absorb the initial waves of attack, then countercharge once the enemy's mobility faltered. Ziyad ibn Salih, assessing the terrain, chose to exploit his strength, speed, and patience. He divided his Abbasid cavalry into flexible wings, each commanded by seasoned tribal captains. He began a campaign of harassment, advancing, losing volleys of arrows, and retreating before the Tang could close ranks. For 2 days, the battle remained inconclusive. The Tang lines held firm, repelling attacks with disciplined volleys of crossbow fire and measured countercharges. Their shields and lamellar armor blunted most assaults, and by dusk on the second day, the Chinese appeared to hold the upper hand. But Gao Xianzhi faced a deeper enemy: distance and exhaustion. His army had marched over 3,000 kilometers from Chang'an to the western frontier. Supplies were thin, morale fraying, and communication faltered. The Abbasids, by contrast, fought near their logistical base and were aided by the desert tribes. On the third day, Ziyad shifted tactics. Instead of frontal engagements, he ordered feigned retreats, luring Tang cavalry into overextension. The Karluk auxiliaries, stationed on the Tang right, began to waver. By the fourth day, attrition set in. Heat, thirst, and fatigue gnawed at the Tang ranks. Ziyad saw the moment and acted. He reached out secretly to the Karluk chieftains, offering gold, land, and amnesty. The Karluks, sensing opportunity, switched sides. On the 5th day of the battle, as dawn broke and dust rose over the river plain, the betrayal unfolded. The Karluk cavalry, once Tang allies, suddenly wheeled around and charged the Tang rear. Gao Xianzhi's army, now caught between Abbasid frontal assaults and Karluk attacks from behind, found itself encircled in a deadly pincer. The Tang formations, once so disciplined, collapsed under chaos. Orders could no longer reach the front lines. Banners disappeared in clouds of sand. Abbasid heavy cavalry pressed in with long lances, while horse archers rained arrows from all sides. The once steady Tang infantry disintegrated into pockets of resistance. Gao Xianzhi tried to rally his left flank for a breakout toward the river. A few hundred managed to cut through, but the majority were slaughtered or captured. When the sun set that evening, the field of Talas was a wasteland of armor, broken spears, and fallen standards. The Tang Expeditionary Army was annihilated, tens of thousands dead or taken prisoner. Gao Xianzhi himself barely escaped with a handful of men, retreating east through the mountains. For the Abbasids, it was a resounding victory. They had faced the mightiest empire in the east and won. But for both sides, Talas will be remembered as a moment when two civilizations met, clashed, and then came back together forever. The Tang Empire never recovered its influence in Central Asia. The protectorates of Anxi and Baiting fell soon after, and the Silk Road came under Muslim control. The Abbasids, though victorious, did not press further east, content to secure Transoxiana as their frontier. Among the Tang prisoners were papermakers from China, whose craft spread to Samarkand, then Baghdad, and eventually Europe. Thus, from a single battle of betrayal and blood, a technology crossed continents, reshaping the course of global knowledge. The clash at Talas ended an age of expansion, but in its ashes, the world learned how to write its future.